Christopher Spera, and this is the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 131. May the 4th be with you. Recorded live Monday, May 4th, 2025.
It is May 4th.
Live from iTechGear Central. As I said, I am Christopher Spera, the editor-in-chief over here at iTechGear.org. Joining us this week in a very different way. We have the dulcet tones, but the
tones are still here. The tones didn't go away. The tones
Don't say nothing. Mr. Chris Gavula, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. The virtual me apparently is doing very well here as well. So I'm sort of appearing virtually, so to speak.
Former contributing editor at Gear Diary and Pocket Now, and of course over here at iTechGear.org. You've got a few little goodies to talk to us about later on.
A little bit. Yeah.
Awesome. Of course, also the former contributing writer from Gear Diary and currently the host of the Linux Link Tech Show and Living in the Retro Arcade podcast. And of course, editor here at iTechGear.org, Brother Joe McLaughlin. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Just flexing the guns here.
Flexing the guns? You better make sure you put some ammunition in them things.
I'm working on that all the time.
I know you are. You're doing a great job, too.
Borrow Larry's growth spurt. It'll help.
And of course, last but never, ever least, the former co-owner of WUGNET Publications and editor here at iTechGear.org, Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. I think I woke up this morning, HVAC was in the heat mode. By afternoon, it was in the AC mode, and now it's back in the heat mode. Come on. Mother Nature, come on, make up your mind.
Welcome to East Tennessee.
I was going to tell you 2 days ago, it was, above 80 here. And then today it didn't even get to 50.
Yeah,
I know. Same thing here.
Welcome to the wonderful world we're in right at the moment.
Yes.
Huh? Yes. Crazy land.
Into spring.
Yeah, it's spring, all right.
Oh, and it has sprung, and apparently it's kind of sprung a little bit for Apple there, from what I understand. From what I understand, as a judge, the judge that's been overseeing the Fortnite trial has basically sanctioned Apple for blatantly violating the App Store agreement or order. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah. Well, let's step back for a minute and remind people how we are where we are real quickly.
Yes.
This started out as basically an argument between the Fortnite developers and Apple. And basically Fortnite violated their Apple agreement and caused this whole mess to go to court. And basically they were stomped down on, except for one provision where basically Apple was basically told that they had to kind of allow steering, which basically means somebody can put in their app a link, a button, whatever, to point to a different website. So, and the whole point of it was so that the developer, the theory was that the developer wanted to avoid paying Apple's charge and fees, and
30%.
Well, 15% or 30%, depending on how much,
depending on who you were and how much money,
and all those kinds of things. But there were a lot of kind of rules to that. But the point was, that's what they wanted to do. So what the judge has now said was that Apple didn't quite do that. What they did was that, yes, they allow the steering, but they charge you for the purpose of steering. And effectively is kind of what they're doing. And so they lowered their regular take fees, but they created these kind of steering link fees, if you will. So what the judge said was, hey, you're violating, what I told you to do. Unfortunately, what the judge told them to do is really pretty broad. And what Apple did was interpreted it in the most favorable way to them. I don't know what you're going to do with that. I mean, I can see the judge maybe tightening up on what the definition of it was, but I think she went a little over the top in this particular reference. I mean, the corporation behaved like a corporation. They're trying to, make it the least financially painful to them as possible, and that's what they did. Whether it's the right thing to do or not, well, the judge can say, "Hey, no, you did it wrong. Now you got to do it differently." But okay. But here's the thing with all of this, right? So if they steer it, and if they don't charge for the right to steer it, what's Apple's benefit to carrying the app at all?
See,
why would a retailer put something on their shelf that they're never going to make a dime off of? Why would they do that? And so in this case, why would they carry the Fortnite app, which basically downloads for free, to allow every sub purchase under it to be route it somewhere else for charging.
Instead a different way, why would well, never mind. I'll keep my mouth shut. No.
Come on, Larry, what you got?
Come on,
No,
let it
I
rip.
just why should Epic, why should they have access to the App Store demographic and pay nothing? F you. I'm sorry.
You know, it's
You
it's
have
like
to pay for that.
you're gonna tell Walmart they got to carry a product and they don't get to make any money on that product.
Right. Well,
Why should they
Walmart
have
will
not gonna
tell
carry
you
that
goodbye.
product?
Yeah,
Yeah,
why would
right.
they do that? So if I was Apple, I don't know what their rights are in order to being allowed to say no, we're not putting you on our store. That gets back to the whole monopoly notions, right? And all those, and we've all
I don't think this
talked
is
about the fact
over.
it's not
I
really a
really don't
monopoly,
think it's over.
but we've had this
No,
conversation about it not really being a monopoly,
It's
but
not even close to being.
but it's all about interpretation. You're right. You know, what the courts say isn't always what reality says. But I think
Well,
at the end of the day, what they should do, what would be a happy agreement in the middle here, would be something like saying, "Look, we'll carry your product, but you can't have it for free. You're gonna have to charge them a buck or two or five or whatever for this thing, and then you can steer to your heart's content." At
Right.
least Apple's making
I
something
got
for
to
having
cover.
carried
Yeah,
this
I got to
stupid
cover
thing.
my overhead on the app.
Yeah, I mean,
Really?
it seems
Right.
unrealistic to not do that and not allow that and not expect that. And I think
I
if this
agree.
judge has forgotten that, why should they do it for no money? I mean, it's no dang sense. They've got, there's got to be some recompense here somewhere. And so I don't think that was the intent. I think this was more of a shock and awe kind of thing. We'll see. And to get everybody to kind of move again, I don't know.
Well,
Maybe that's what this is.
I happen to think that this is completely unreasonable. This is a
Right.
completely
I do too.
unreasonable request by the court. If Apple has to allow them to include the app and have it be a free app, right? And they allow this purchase steering away to a different store, and Epic, the maker of Fortnite, is gonna push this hard. All right, they're gonna push this hard to steer you away from the Apple payment links.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
All right, they're gonna push really hard. Then there's no benefit for Apple to have it on their platform. And we're back to the beginning of this whole thing.
And I was going to say, I think we should remember that at the beginning of this whole process, that Epic violated the terms of their agreement with Apple. That it was
On
what's on purpose, which started this.
They were the first.
Epic has not actually behaved in an above the board manner at all.
No,
they really haven't.
I don't believe they have either.
And you can agree or disagree that we should be allowing them, or not allowing them, or whatever it might be. But the point is, yeah, they're not exactly altruistic here. I think I want to make that clear. They're not really being altruistic. So
no, they're
jealous.
They are.
Yeah.
Did you say they were jealous?
Yeah, they're jealous. They don't want to give any of the money that they know they get to Apple.
Yeah.
They want to keep every single bit of it.
Why can't this be simplified down to something like, so Chris G, you own a pastry shop in Detroit or somewhere in Michigan. I make donuts. So I bring this tray of donuts to say, Chris, sell my donuts in your pastry shop. And you go, well, sure, but you're going to have to pay me something. And I go, no, just want you to put them on your shelf and I'll get all the profit. This doesn't fly anywhere in America.
And that's what I'm saying.
That's exactly what this is.
I don't think it's going to fly anywhere other than
a
state controlled, economy or a store. All right. You're not going to have the ability anywhere. You're not going to do this in Europe. You're not going to do this in America.
No.
You're not going to do this in South America or any South American country. All right. You aren't going to do this in anywhere where capitalism is king, where cash is king. You're just not going to do it. All right. Because there's no incentive for me to sell your donuts. Sure, I will go ahead.
He who owns the store controls the inventory. Period.
Yeah. And in which case I will take your donuts.
Right.
All right. And I will stick them in the basement.
Right.
all right, with a small little sign somewhere in my store that says donuts downstairs. And that's all that I'm going to do. All right. If even that. All right. Um, they have to. I'm sorry, your donuts got all moldy.
Hey, they're good donuts,
You
man.
know.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I mean, I don't have to do anything in order to push the sale of your
Right.
All right. And if
Nor
you
does Apple, I
right,
think.
nor does Apple. And honestly, if maybe Apple can come up with some kind of a process where, hey, you want to have a sponsored link or something, you want to be on the rotary that talks about apps, cool apps, hot apps, whatever. You're going to pay me to be on those things. Otherwise, I'm not doing any advertising for you unless you pay for it. And you're going to pay what I want you
want to be on the end cap. It's going to cost you.
Yes,
That's right.
Absolutely.
This is not reasonable. I get the idea of competition. I get the idea of allowing these things to be open. I understand all of that.
Right.
But this isn't the way to do it, kids.
No.
Right.
Forcing me to carry a piece of inventory that I'm not going to make any money off of.
Right.
And on the other side of that coin too, Apple has, let's face it, Fortnite. Many parents don't particularly care for it because they're spending
fair enough.
so much money to them, and it's sketchy the way they do it. They're pay this amount of money, you get this skin. Ooh,
and I would argue that's true for any of these apps that do these kind of micropay things. It's kind of an underhanded. It's not underhanded, but it's not open either. So, I'm not a fan of micropayments. So I'd rather buy the app and be done with it. But
and the problem with micropayments is that $1.99 here, 99 cents there, 90 cents. I mean, after a while, you found out you spent $50.
But that was the whole fun. If you remember, that was originally the idea behind the shopping cart. It wasn't to help you carry your stuff. It was that you'd see that you had room and you just put more things in it without thinking about it. That was the original idea going on. So yeah, it kind of is like that. You just grab a little here, grab a little there, and before you realize it, you're at the checkout and you just spent $100 and you don't know how.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how this is, because you don't see it.
No, you don't see it. All those $1.99 payments that you're making for those jewel or coin packs or whatever it is, that drives purchases in your app.
So I get it.
After a while, it adds up.
It adds up. So, there we go. So the judges basically said Apple.
I would love if they did some regulation on micropayments because it's getting ridiculous.
And I would say across the board. This is just one example of the problem.
That's a subject
words
topic
with
for
friends.
a different
There's
day.
Another one. Same thing.
Yeah.
It didn't used to be though. When it came out, it was not like that.
No, it didn't. Sadly, I love that game, but I'm so tired of all those micropayment windows. God.
Micropayment windows and those ads that float on top of it's getting to be.
So here we are. Here we are. The judges said Apple violated it. They're actually even threatening possibly criminal charges. I don't see that actually happening or falling through, but but again, I think it's all shock and awe. I think it's all designed to make Apple stand up and take notice. That's probably what it's mostly about. We'll see where it goes, but I think it's all been, this whole thing has been kind of theater anyway. This whole on all fronts, it's been kind of a theater show. So we'll see,
I guess. But yeah. So let's move on to something a little happier, shall we?
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to something
a little. So there's new devices in the house. Talk to me, Chris, about what do you got?
Let's start with the simpler thing. So I have I think like many families, we tend to buy things and then push our older things out to other family members when we replace things. And I was in the place where one of my family members needed a new machine. So I was pushing my machine down and getting a new machine for myself. So what I did was I replaced with my MacBook Air M1 with a MacBook Pro M4 Pro chip. So thing has 24 gig of RAM. It's the space black color. It has much better screen, has a lot more ports, lot faster processor. Otherwise, it's a MacBook Pro, but it's a very nice, exciting machine. You don't realize how slow your older machines are until you put a new machine in front of you.
Right.
Right. You think my machine's fine, and I've been thinking that all along. I put this one and went, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute, this is a lot faster.
Yeah.
And I've noticed, the little things like that. Mostly, the funny thing about MacBooks,
what is the funny thing about MacBooks, Chris?
Is that I think it's kind of a good thing. In a lot of ways, they haven't changed in a while. So the keyboard feels the same, the trackpad feels the same, but it's top of class most of the time in both cases. So why should it change? But it's like, oh, okay. So there's no real learning curve.
Change, does it?
No, and there's no real learning curve to getting up running on the new one.
Right.
This one has a lot more ports, and it has that MagSafe connection. My M1 MacBook Air did not. It just had the USB-C for charging and everything. So it's interesting to have this. To be honest with you guys, I'm not a huge fan of the MagSafe charging. Don't really care about it one way or another. Don't hate it, don't love it. Think it's overrated, but just give me a USB port and let me charge it. Give me another USB port and let me charge there.
Sure.
I'd be fine. But this is fine. It's nice. I actually do not have it plugged in with the MagSafe. I have it plugged in with the USB-C because I use that to hook to an external monitor with it. So, and I get a charge off of that. So, but it's been it's a good machine. I have an SD card in the side of it, this one, which I do like because the Air did not have an SD card slot. This has one in there. And I've got 2 terabyte on that, 1 terabyte on board. And I moved my media to the SD card.
I think that MagSafe charging thing, Chris, is more of a use case issue. If you're one of the types that if you drag it from the sofa to the living room to the bathroom to here to there, and you're always on the go in the car, in the office, then you could break a plug. But in your case, probably not.
Well, you could, but here's the thing, Larry. I have to carry a special adapter to use the MagSafe. Whereas if I just have a USB plug with me anyway, because I'm charging my phone, because I'm charging my iPad, because I'm charging my MacBook, I might as well just have the dang USB-C with me. I could possibly break it, but then I only have to have one power thing with me instead of, another one, another proprietary adapter that I can't use any other way and any other place.
You can still do that though, because you can power off of the power delivery, USB-C power delivery, so you don't have to use a MagSafe. I generally don't.
But I would have to. But yeah, and that's what I'm doing. I use the USB-C to charge it. I do not use the MagSafe to charge it. Or theoretically, you could use the MagSafe to charge it and then just hang everything off the USB ports of the MacBook. But then you got another device in the middle of the mix. So it's easier just to carry the USB-C with a high wattage charger with you, and away you go. So that was one device I got. The other device I got is something I've been thinking about for a while, and I bought an Apple Vision Pro, but not new at the $3,500 point. I bought it used. There have been quite a few available out there. And with the talk of the potential successor, the 2 or the Air or whatever they're going to call it potentially coming out, I wanted to see how the whole thing was going, and they have made it's funny because I've spent a lot of time reading the reviews and such ever since it came out. It came out in this, by the way, device came out in February of 2024. And they stopped manufacturing it around the end of the year. Depending on who you listen to, either they did it because there was no sales, or they did it because that's the only amount they meant to make in the first place. They never expected a lot of sales. Take it either way. But the point is, they you can still get them new at the store. It's not like you can't get them. But this is a used unit. It's perfectly good. It's the higher end 1 terabyte unit. I like that because I like to carry a lot of things like movies with me when I travel and whatnot. And I haven't used this on travel yet. I plan to. But it's an interesting device. Certainly the best in class. I have the MetaQuests. I have a couple of them. And this is a better device. There's no question. I mean, the argument is it worth the many times that it costs over the Metas. Again, I think it depends on your use case.
Get what you pay for.
You get what you pay for. There's clearly quality that goes into this that did not go into the Meta devices. So if VR takes off, AR, mixed reality, if any of those take off, they're positioned pretty well right now. The camera pass through is one of the best pass throughs I've ever seen. The just the fidelity of the picture. You got two 4K screens, OLED screens that you're using to make the displays. There's only one or two players that are using higher res screens than that. So you really have an amazing display to look at. Very sharp. You can actually type on the screen and read it. I can't do that in the Meta. The Meta is too fuzzy to me. People do it, but to me, for other than short terms, I couldn't do it. It's too fuzzy. It's got that screen door effect, as we call it. You can see the grid lines, but you don't see that here on the Vision Pro. I don't notice it at all. If you run Apple TV, if you run Disney Plus, you will get presented with 3D movies as well as your regular set of movies, and they're mostly free or they're part of the subscriptions you already have. You're not paying any additional for them. So, and they are really good. They are really well done. And if you have the Photos app, they have a spatializer. I don't know what you would call that. There's a button you click and it turns your image into a spatial image. It's really impressive, very realistic. To very, very realistic. You're just like, holy crap! You can actually reach in and touch things. You feel like, So it's very, very impressive. Just at the early stages of playing with this thing. We'll see more. I am, you guys know, I'm on this Zoom call on it right now, and it's working very well. So, stuff we're going to be writing about, stuff that's going to be showing up on the site makes Mr. Chris very excited. I know.
It does, because there's something else up there aside from, hey, catch up on the latest episode of the iTechGear Weekly. So
awesome. Well, we'll have that soon.
That would be cool. So some previews of coming attractions and
coming attractions.
And speaking of previews of coming attractions, there's some new iPhones that are supposed to come out this year, and I had heard a little birdie said something about there are new factories that are opening up in India specifically that will actually hopefully be able to produce more of the phones than those coming out of China that are imported into the U.S. Hopefully we'll import them from India or more Brazil than we will in China, where there's going to be a huge at least 125% tariff on the actual device. So, Larry, what's going on with these new factories in India? What's happening there?
Well, first of all, this is not anywhere near as exciting as a new toy like the Vision Pro, but we must talk about it because it's happening. And actually, it's one of those stories. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye. If you read other places and you start putting the pieces together, it appears that Apple's answer to the new tariffs is in an old country song by Johnny Paycheck that has a new spin. It's called "Take These Tariffs and Shove Them."
Oh, there you go.
There you go. So what's interesting,
I was wondering how you were going to spin that. I'm glad.
Yeah. Whatever do you mean?
What's really interesting to me is they've been planning these factories since long before the tariffs were ever a glimmer in the current administration's eye. However, they're working much to Apple's benefit because Apple's shifting iPhone production away from the higher imposed tariffs in China to tariffs that they're a little bit less, quite a bit less, actually. And despite what the big White House claims, they have not proven and do not see moving to the U.S. the manufacturing of these iPhones. Sadly, we simply can't do them here properly. We can do them.
Well, it's not that we couldn't do them here properly. We could. You're right.
But Tim Cook says we're not going to do it. We could, but
No,
we're not going to.
because we don't have the backbone, the manufacturing backbone like we
We
did
don't. We just,
decades and
it's not
decades
what
ago.
we do. We
Not
have other
anymore.
things that we
No,
do here. But
no.
you
Well,
know, you
and we can't do it at cost. Let's be honest, guys.
That's
We
where
that's
I'm
cannot
very,
do it
more
at
very
cost.
drawn
true.
than anything
But you
else.
know, on Apple's part here, you got to do what you got to do. I don't blame them. These two new iPhone
Yeah.
factories, Foxconn, of course, is the one, and the other one, which is a secondary producer,
Tata,
Tata.
isn't it?
So
Yeah.
But yeah, they bypass these insanely high tariffs posed by China. I don't think this is a coincidence. I think
well, yeah.
well, let me finish this one
I
thing,
think you're
Chris.
right.
I really think that Apple saw this whole mess coming and they planned for it if it came. You don't get to be a $3 trillion company without having some of the best
Mm.
business minds in the world. My
Agreed.
dollar is on Apple being smarter than the current administration when it comes to business, and I'll stick with that all the way to the end. Any administration, not just this one.
Yeah.
Any no, go ahead. That's
Well,
it.
I think the thing is, Larry, I think they've been planning for this for a long time, but not for this particular reason. I think there were other
Right.
factors
But
that
it
were going
happened.
into
Yeah.
them. Doing business in China has become harder and harder. And they were having problems doing business in India because India was making requirements that certain things be done
Yeah.
onshore to them. So I think those kinds of things all kind of combined, and they were getting very nervous about what was going on in China way before any of the tariff stuff happened.
Agreed.
And I think they've been wanting to get out of there. They were moving. Did they not also move some stuff to Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken? And
I don't
Wasn't
know.
there also a plant or two opening up in Brazil
yeah, I think
as
that's
That's
well?
true as
true.
well.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
So
true.
the point is that I think they realized that having everything dependent in China was just not the way to go.
No.
And so
So now they're diversifying.
so they're in the right, they were in the right track anyway, not
Right.
necessarily for this reason, but like you said, Larry, and I think it's important, these people are not idiots when it comes to doing business.
No.
They get it.
Yeah.
They get it.
Right.
So,
Well,
and
you don't
Tim,
get to be that
we have to
that
remember that
successful without it.
much
So.
as much as we praise or bash Tim Cook, he was a supply side guy.
Yep.
He understands
Yep.
how to control, getting
Costs.
parts and moving those. He understands all of that stuff better than just about anybody in
Sure
corporate
he does.
America today. He gets
Absolutely.
that. That part of it he gets. Other parts of the
Yep.
business he's a little weird on, but that part he's really good at.
That's true. But I think where he struggles in those other places, he has some people who are
He
brilliant,
does.
and he's certainly surrounded himself with a cadre of very, very smart folks. We'll see what happens, but I think Apple will suffer less than other large companies who don't have the wherewithal to move as quickly as
Mhm.
Apple did. So we'll see.
We'll see. I'm excited about this because even though Apple said that they would eat some of the tariffs that were imposed, they're not going to eat. They're not going to eat everything.
No, but I
And
think your next iPhone or the one after that won't cost you as much as your next dishwasher or washing machine or
Yeah,
car. I
I
mean,
think you're right.
yeah, which is good. But
yeah.
I'm glad to see that they are diversifying their manufacturing base. It would be
Should have
nice
done
if they
that a
had
long time
something
ago.
here. Right. It's something that they should have done a long time ago. However, at the time, Apple or China was making it just too attractive to build everything
Yep.
there. So now things that they've started turning that platform around a little bit, and if you will, and they're starting to it's costing a little bit more. And there's a few more hoops to jump through that would benefit
Mhm.
China as opposed to the manufacturing or the designing company, if you will. But yeah, um, it will. I'm hoping that this diversification will accelerate a little bit. You can still have some in China, that's fine, but I'd love to see something in India. I'd love to see something in South America. I'd also like to see something perhaps in some Eastern European countries as well. But we'll have to wait and see. I just like it to spread out enough that it's not all concentrated in one area.
Mhm.
So, but that's just me. And speaking of areas,
Mm.
you got to make it. It's a bad transition, but you got to do something.
You got to do something.
Something. Right. Apparently, there's an AirPlay flaw that makes iPhones vulnerable, or at least there was. Larry, what's going on with this?
Yeah, this was, I mean, I don't know how big a deal it was, but I mean, it's always nice to know that something bad happened to you and you didn't even know it, I guess. But
Right.
it was recently discovered that there was an AirPlay flaw, we'll call it, note the past tense, all Apple devices that were exposed to hacking over Wi-Fi for a certain period of time until Apple and their partner in this, Oligo Security, figured it all out. And while this sort of sounds like a lead in, like a Forbes clickbait lead in, it's not. It's
Yeah.
real stuff. It came from we first read about this at Tom's Guide, and it's real stuff. Millions and millions of AirPlay enabled devices were at risk for several months.
Mm-hmm.
While Apple and all these security folks over at Oligo, if you don't know who Oligo is, they're a security firm who specializes in runtime application security. So they're one of Apple's big partners and things like
Mm-hmm.
this. And they worked together to develop and roll out a bunch of patches that were put in the last couple of updates to the iPhone and other Apple devices. And they took care of all this, and now it's the past thing. But there was a time when our devices were exposed, and we didn't know this. So is this a bad thing? Should Apple have told people the infected devices could have been used for a variety of malicious behavior things like ransomware, surveillance, espionage, if you will, supply chain
Mm-hmm.
infiltration? All this
Mm-hmm.
crap could have happened. I don't think it did. And the good news is that Apple, of course, regularly receives fixes, and all your devices regularly receive fixes, and the bugs have been patched, and it's all
Right.
old bad news, and now it's not here. But
Right.
does it bother anybody, you guys, that this happened and we didn't know about it?
Does it bother? Well, what concerns me is not so much that it occurred and we didn't receive any kind of a notice from it, but if you've got a wireless CarPlay adapter or a wireless CarPlay system in your vehicle, it was also something that
Yep.
could have been compromised. Your radio, your car, in and of itself, your car. All right. Which really you got to think about, where is AirPlay employed? Is it just my TV? All right. Or is that particular vulnerability going to give folks broader access through my home network? I don't know.
Well,
All right.
in a car, for example, though, CarPlay as a system doesn't have access to the car's systems.
Right.
Right.
It can't be a safety thing
No,
here.
and
It
they don't
won't
allow.
be,
I mean,
no.
automotive manufacturers don't allow it. But as
Well,
far as on
CarPlay
your
1,
phone,
no. CarPlay
even
2, you
before,
never know.
but on the phone, or your iPad or whatever it might have been, there are things you could have done if you knew that something was going on. Like, you don't have to have receiving on all the time, for example, or you
Right.
change the receiving to contacts only, things
Right.
like that. And I happen to have mine that way by default. I always have.
Right.
So,
I don't know you. You don't get to pass me
right,
something unless I know
exactly.
you.
So but I have to wonder. You remember back a couple of years ago when all the chaos was going on in Hong Kong, when China kind of cracked the whip down in Hong Kong. Do you remember a lot of people were trying to use AirPlay to share like leaflets with each other to get them to come to rallies and things like that,
Right.
and that got cracked down on. So the problem was in that particular scenario, everybody was leaving the receive on all the time because and allowing anybody to send to them because they
Right.
wanted to be able to get these things if they
Right.
were to come up.
But also,
That is a bad
CarPlay doesn't
situation.
get it.
Right.
CarPlay doesn't get updated nearly as often
It
as your
does not.
iPhone.
Correct.
True.
So the patches could maybe not even be in some of them right yet.
Right.
I don't know.
True enough.
Right now, me and my wife, because she doesn't do hers regularly. I make her do it, but
yes. No. Those
we all live that life, Joe.
that is true. That is true. If and this is the thing that I tell just about everybody. The advice that I give is usually, hey, did you hear that Apple came out with a new update today for pick a device? All right.
Yeah.
No, I didn't hear that. Go check now, install it now.
Yeah.
All right. Yes,
Yeah.
you're jumping on the early curve. All right. From a consumer perspective, you're jumping on that early curve. But
Right.
you're getting all of the latest security updates and patches with that update. Now, could there be something wrong? There could be something wrong with any update that comes out
I
from
agree.
anybody. From anybody, it does not
Well,
matter. But install the latest updates, get the latest patches as quickly as you can.
And let's keep in mind, your car doesn't have to be updated. CarPlay doesn't run on your car.
Yeah.
CarPlay runs on your phone.
And the radio
an
is
app
just
on
a
your-
receiver. Yes.
And the radio is just a receiver. So any patching that would
I
be done
get that, but
would
it
be
just
on your
makes
phone
me-
anyway.
It makes me itchy. All right.
I know.
It makes me, I mean, and it would,
It's a very limited interface, though,
I
really,
know,
at the end of the day.
I know, but that's CarPlay 1. I don't know how extensive it will
That's
be
fair.
in CarPlay 2.
That's
right?
fair.
With the larger implementation of
But
that
it's still
Apple
but it's
software
still
throughout the
driven
entire
it's
car.
still driven primarily out of the mobile device, not out of the car.
I get that, but I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. All
Yeah.
right. Until we know
Spera,
more about
I-
that system, I'm just,
I agree with Chris Spera here. In fact, every time there's an update, I throw it on a banner and put it right on the front
Oh,
page,
yeah.
right at the top. I scroll it for a day or two. I don't care.
Yep.
Yeah.
update
Yep.
now. Update now. And if you
Update.
haven't updated yet, update now.
When should we be updating?
Be now. Now.
Okay. Good to know.
And you know what else is interesting that's coming along, and I think this is getting in lines with a little bit of strategy from Apple, which I think is kind of cool. It's not a real huge piece of strategy, but it's interesting that they are thinking along these lines if they're going to release a specific kind of phone. Apple is thinking that it may stagger not this year's or the iPhone 17, but the 18, right, next year's iPhones to make way for a foldable.
Yeah, that's the story. I mean, that's what we're hearing about it anyway. To the point that the standard iPhones, instead of being in the late fall,
Right.
may not happen until early 2027.
Right.
So you have room to get a foldable in here somewhere,
Right.
along with the Pro models.
Right.
That'll be
Right.
out around the same time. So we're talking about the iPhone 18s. We're not talking about the 17s.
Correct.
We're talking about 2026, not 2025.
Correct.
But that all is in line with what we've been hearing about the foldables all along. Anyway, that 2026 would possibly be the release for those devices. So, here we go, and they're just
Right.
going to spread the deployment out a little bit. That's
right.
all.
So now, again, this year with the iPhone 17, business as usual, right? What they're talking about is for the fall of 2026, not this fall, but next fall, you're talking about actually releasing the iPhone 18 Pro and any quote unquote Air model in the fall, and then the standard iPhone 18 series, which would be the iPhone 18 and the iPhone 18 Plus, would get shunted to the spring of 2027. All right, releasing alongside the iPhone 16e follow-up, right? According to the information, right? And that would be an interesting development because it would have then two big quote unquote iPhone releases a year.
Well, and a fold somewhere in all of that.
And a fold somewhere in there, but it would get us to the 19 and the 20 quicker. All right, which I think is part of what they're wanting to do for 27 is to get us there quicker, get an iPhone 20, if you will, a little bit quicker.
There's
so we hit
another
the
part
27.
of that puzzle, I think, and I don't think that's a bad marketing move. If you have a new product coming out 4 or 5 times a year instead of once a year, that's not bad. I mean, that's a good thing.
No. And what will be interesting to see is, okay, so you've given me all of these wonderful pro features. Which of those are you going to stick in the iPhone uh, 18 series, right? Or what are you going to stick in the regular series for that model year?
Well,
Hey,
that
the
that
problem
raises
is you
interest.
and I, the four of us worry about that. The average person worries about what does it cost? That's it. That's all they care about.
Well,
Is
I
it a
was gonna.
$300 iPhone? I'll take it. That's it. They don't care what's in it.
I was going to say that, but the thing that's interesting is what we see is, and we see this again in the roles that we play as well. People every time these new models come out, they all come out around the same time frame, and everybody says, "Oh, what's in the Pro? What's in the not Pro? What should I do?" Well, and they're doing all these cross comparisons that really don't help the average consumer. They
That
really
is
don't.
true.
They don't care.
That
No,
is true.
not at all.
So it's interesting to separate them. It's like, so when the Pro comes out, you won't have the regular ones out at the same time. You're not going to be thinking about the regular ones.
Right. And you've got to keep on reminding yourself or the general public that is more worried about cost or whatever that,
Mhm.
okay, these are the Pro devices.
Thus, each new product will be its own big deal
Mhm.
This is what
showcase.
I'm
It'll
saying.
be a
These are the
Right.
Pro
like
products.
Chris,
And if you're
like Chris
waiting for
G
the
just said.
right, if you're waiting
It'll
for the
reduce
regular
some of the
products,
cross
they'll be out in the
comparison.
spring,
Yeah.
you know? So I think this could be a good thing. You can get you get the spring thing, you get the fall thing, right? So it'll be interesting.
And you've already got the FC or whatever they're going to call it. It's separated anyway.
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
E
but
E S
grouping,
C. What are we calling it this week?
but you're grouping, you're getting all of the pro products out on one release, and then you're getting all of the budget products out on one release, and you just need to make sure which one do you want? Do you want the iPhone 18, the 18 Plus, or the 18 SE?
Well,
Right.
and the thing that's not talked about in this article is, where does this fold fall into this mix?
Right. It does not mention that. So
It's an interesting omission.
yeah.
They use that as the premise for why they're separating them, but then they don't
And they
say
don't
where
talk
this
about
falls.
it, which
Yeah.
which leads us back to the thing that we've all been saying all the time out of this until Skinny Timmy walks across that
that's right.
Until he
stage.
They
walks
don't know.
across,
They're
Says
not
here it
talking about it
is.
because
we've
they don't
seen
know
nothing.
when
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
Yeah,
we don't know.
You don't know. You ain't gonna get nothing until it's presented. So
There we go.
Yep.
we'll see what happens. This will be an interesting time, though. I would like to see them split these because I would like to see them give a
I
little.
too.
I would like to see them give a little bit more to the
Well,
pro series,
they
and then a little bit more to the regular and or budget side of
well
the
they already
devices.
split the iPad deployments apart
Yeah.
throughout the year.
Right.
So why not do it with the phones?
Why not?
Why not?
Why
It'll
not?
cost them a little bit more money to market it like that, but it'll be worth it, I think.
I do too.
Maybe.
It's worth. It's not going to hurt them. I don't think. I don't see how it would.
No.
No.
No. It's hard to hurt a $3 trillion company. Let's face it.
I don't know. Let's ask that judge. She's trying.
She is trying, but that's a different story altogether. Anyway, all right. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead. Why don't we just move to our mobile Linux segment?
Why don't we do that?
All right. And speaking of mobile Linux and stuff, Google I/O, it's coming out when, Joel?
May 20th and 21st. And it looks like it's primarily online again.
So less than 3 weeks from today, the recording of this episode, which is May the 4th. And again, May the 4th be with you. So,
are you just going to do that every time you get a chance to do that? I just want to know.
Yes,
Okay.
I am.
Okay, good for you.
So
My.
they've divided this up into, and this is like Google's version of WWDC.
Yes, it is.
Easy for me to say. They got an Android stage, an AI stage, which is all going to be about Gemini, a web stage, and a cloud stage. So their schedules already posted for the stages. So I expect you're probably not going to see any hardware, but you might see like next versions of Android or Gemini or whatever. So it's always exciting to see things. It's not as, they have brought hardware out at Google I/O before, but it's been ages since I've done so.
Sure.
So
Right.
expect hardware. But it's always interesting to see what Google's gonna do, and sometimes they do great things and sometimes not so great, which
Right.
is
Yeah, we'll see.
So
next
then,
topic
right,
is
there's two big keynotes, all right, on the 20th. One starts at that was interesting. One starts
right.
at 10 a.m. Pacific, and that's the Google keynote, right? And then the developer keynote starts at 1:30 Pacific, right? And
Right.
then they've got different stages there of things that are going on, like you said, Joel.
Yep. Yep. So I've never attended it. I'd like to someday, but it's yeah, we all have this magical thing called work, so
True,
but
true.
it'll be interesting to see what Google does.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not as stupid as their next story.
Well,
Yeah.
which
Speaking
of
of,
course, speaking of which is of course, Google is rolling out its AI chatbot to kids under 13.
I think
Yeah.
that's almost a wheel spin, just almost. We'll see.
Yeah. My only problem with this is kids younger, 13 and younger,
Yeah,
they just can't, are gonna have a hard time separating what the AI gives you and
right.
the truth. And
We
that's
do.
my problem with it. Yeah.
So
So,
we'll see. But
mhm,
I've I will tell you, back in the day, and I didn't have a problem with it back then.
right,
My youngest son, who at the time was probably about 3 or 4.
right,
So this is circa 2010, 2011.
right.
He'll be 18 this fall, middle of September. But he would sit on the couch with his iPad and he would have a conversation for a good couple 3 hours with Siri. All right.
Right.
And they would just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I knew it wasn't a problem because most of the stuff was all done on the device as opposed to going out to the cloud and doing something like it is now. Right.
Mhm.
And it wasn't it wasn't going to shove him somewhere that he shouldn't be, or show him something that he was not ready to consume as a child. All right. I have problems with something that is as unproven as AI is, especially a chatbot to begin with,
Right.
being made available to kids under the age of 13. And I don't know how far do they go down to the 5, 6, 7 year olds? Do they go that far down, or how are they? Where are they drawing a line, and where do they draw a line?
Yeah, it's a wait,
You
why am
know,
I
I don't understand how they're going to go ahead and do all that stuff. Um,
yeah.
so it kind of got me scratching my cortical a little bit here. I don't get it.
And of course, it's a New York Times story, and it's trying to say,
it's a paywall.
Yeah, there's a paywall that's problematic with this. And I apologize to everybody for including the Times link, but it was where we got the story. Um,
so it says
But
make the chatbot. Oh, I don't need to send out stupid
so
password.
I don't know. I don't know that I'm real happy with the only thing that
well,
you can really see is the tech giant said it would make its Gemini chatbot available to children next week and warn families in an email about the changes.
so all they're doing is getting a warning. That's not exactly
That's
saying
not
that they're going to
enough.
restrict that. It's not saying they're going to restrict what the
No,
chatbot can do.
no,
You know,
it's not. And unfortunately, I don't,
There's a better
I don't know
story.
that they've done enough. But that's just me.
It says
So
notifying parents. There, I found a better story.
okay,
Notifying parents using its family link parental controls via email that their kids will soon be able to access the Gemini AI apps on their monitored Android devices. So they're on their monitored devices. So,
Yeah. Whoop-de-doop-de.
yeah, I still don't think it's a great idea.
No,
I
no.
think there should be a way, if they're monitored devices, parents should have a way to shut that stuff off. And
They
if there is
probably
a
do,
way,
and they
if
probably
there,
do, but
right, if there
still,
is a way, do it. Don't, I mean, just turn it off for now. Wait, look into it yourself, figure it
right.
out. If you want your kids messing with it,
Yeah.
or teach your kids how to use it, then it could be a good tool. But
But if there are restrictions in it or not, I mean, so far it sounds to me like Google is not doing a great job of communicating on this.
Well,
That's a problem.
part of that is potentially the paywall. Part of that, the other half of that is
there,
probably
put a
Google.
Verge story in there.
Thank you. So that'll be we'll have we'll have a Verge link in the show notes as well, which is good. Yeah, I don't like kids having
I don't
too much
either.
access to stuff like this.
It's
They
hard
need
enough now.
it's
with
hard enough
like,
being a kid, especially in this day and age when you've got social media everywhere, advertisers everywhere trying to get you to get mom and dad to buy stuff.
Worse than ever. And it's
Yeah,
getting worse every day.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
tough.
like kids, having any extra pressure on them. Let them be kids. Let the kids be kids for a while, all right? I mean, but again, that's just me. I'm pushing 60, so shut up and get off my lawn. But
the next one. Ugh.
yeah.
Oh boy.
So so most folks, if you're a Google user, you're now going to have access to the AI mode experiment in Google search. So Joel, what is this?
So basically, a new search experiment, you can get AI powered responses, ask follow up questions, and explore more on the web. So basically, anytime I do a Google search, I see probably the first thing I see is an AI thing, which I personally probably gonna look into shutting it off because the AI thing is usually woefully incorrect.
Yeah.
So
Depending on the nature of the question. Yeah.
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 Interestingly enough, this AI mode experiment is meant for folks 18 years of age and older who
Which Google
opt
isn't
in
going to
via
block you
Google Labs. So
from. Okay.
So if you're making your chatbot available to 13-year-old kids and younger, how is
Made a
this
tweak here. It looks
how is
like they
this
made a tweak
different?
though. When
So
I just went to do Google and say like, is something a good brand? And the first thing that came up was the all category, which is the second one over from the AI.
right.
And then if you click on the AI one, you get the AI chatbot one. So at
Well, don't
least
you
with
get this anyway? I mean, when I have Google as my search engine in Safari, when I
yeah,
search on anything, the first thing is AI overview, and I can take it or leave it and move on past.
Well,
right.
they're supposed to be
Yep.
saying,
And
you
it
go to
does do that.
google.com to give this thing a shot, go to google.com, enter a question in the search bar and tap AI mode below the search bar. All
Right.
right. So on the Google app, tap AI mode below the search bar on the home screen. And then use text to ask your question. So,
One thing I do like with the AI mode is, like, for example, I typed in, is Apple a good brand? It says
mhm,
whether Apple is a good brand is subjective and depends on individual priorities and preferences. And then following that is a link, a little link button. You click that, and off to the right, it has 11 different stories that used to build that part of the answer. And they do the same thing with each section of the answer. So that's actually not a bad thing, because at least then where it got the information. Now, if the AI as for information is interpreted as right from those things, the jury's out on that.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's something you have to do for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Be wary of it and know that when you're using it. So don't just take what AI gives you as
No, take it with a grain of salt.
definitive
It's not
answer.
infallible. It's not infallible. All right.
Absolutely.
And just make certain, if you're going to use ChatGPT or if you're going to use Gemini or Copilot or whatever it is that you're going to use,
All of it.
you need to make certain A, that you take it with a grain of salt, and B, you make certain that the information that it's giving back to you is actually accurate. Lots of schools now are going through and they're passing it. I forget what the app is called, the website or service is called, to check for how much AI did you use to create
There's
this.
several out there that do that now,
Yeah.
Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well, the other thing you can do is do your own research first, then come back and do an AI check, make sure, find out how you can temper
either
it, but don't do the AI first and then your own search.
Right.
That's wrong.
And I will say
either
that
way, from my perspective, you need to make certain that the assertions that you're making or that the AI is making are in fact accurate, legitimate, and correct. So,
Yep.
because you could end up, biting yourself in the thuchus. So, don't.
I do recommend trying the AI stuff because the only way it's going to get better is if you give it feedback. All right.
Sure.
So, if the AI is telling you something's wrong, report that. And then hopefully in the near future, it fixes itself. I hope.
Right.
But that's what I'm, if you want AI to get better, use it. Period. I mean, it's that simple.
Agreed.
Yep.
Agreed. This last one I thought was kind of interesting, and it really kind of makes you wonder how much junk is truly in an app store. The Google Play Store has shucked or gotten rid of apparently half its apps.
1.8 million. Whoa.
Yeah, it's a lot of apps.
Yep. And then, to be fair on that, it's not necessarily a bad app. Some of them are abandoned apps that haven't had updates in years and years and years. Apps
That's a
that
good
do
thing.
nothing.
It's
a very good thing.
But it's general housekeeping. Let's be honest. And some of it was bad apps. Some of it was just, like you said, old apps. Some of it was just abandonware.
Right.
Many years ago, I had a friend who made an app that was essentially a button that when you tapped on it, it said "Booyah" in his voice, and that's gone. Because he hasn't done anything with it. So
the argument could have been. I'm glad to see that they finally did it. They went. They had about 3.5 million apps beginning of 2024. They're now down to about 1.6 million or so, which, by the way, folks, for comparison, is about the same place that the old Apple's iOS iTunes store is at in terms of the number of apps. It's about the same place.
I think Apple is very, very guilty of this themselves. If you go up, pick a genre, I don't care, pick a type of app, you'll find 10, 20, 30 good apps in that genre, and you scroll endlessly through the garbage.
Oh, sure.
It's still there.
Yeah.
Why don't they get rid of it? The standards aren't there. They need to vet these better.
I think that's a challenge, and I think you're right. I'd like to see that, but here's the challenge. Does it do what it's supposed to do?
Yeah.
I mean, you may not like it. It might be basic crap. It might be taken from public domain information somewhere rather than actually something unique or useful. But if it does what it's supposed to do, don't they start getting accused of monopoly crap again if they just take things out?
Yeah, probably right.
So that's got to be a balancing act. I think for both Google and Apple, it's got to be a balancing act. And I'm not sure, how to completely make that great for everybody. But having said that, I think that they do an okay job. I mean, they always have. I'm glad to see Google did this and got rid of all these apps. But my question kind of would be, well, why weren't you doing this all along? But but I'm glad to see that they did it. But that the short form is really how big it is. That's really what got my attention with this story. Wasn't that that they did it? It was more like, wow, that's a lot of freaking apps.
Right.
Yeah.
Really.
That's
I
a
agree.
huge undertaking.
Right.
So,
well,
yeah, it's just an interesting kind of thing.
It is.
Glad
it
to
is
see
an
it.
interesting kind of thing. And, we're going to come back here and we're going to get into our Windows segment. And there's a couple of things that I want to touch on there before we get really to the back half of the show. But we're going to do that right after this brief message. Hi. This is Christopher Spera from iTechGear.org. I wanted to talk with you today about becoming a contributing donor to the site. iTechGear.org has been around for almost 15 years. In fact, our anniversary is just around the corner on January 10th, 2025. 15 years. Where has the time gone? I've never really asked for any kind of donations for the site. It's always been about me providing value to you, a site visitor or podcast listener. The iTechGear Weekly is now in its 4th year of production, and Chris G, Joel, and Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin and I are having a really great time providing you with some of the best free tech talk available from time-tested original internet writers, testers, site founders, and professional writers and editors on the internet. I truly believe that our crew has some of the best and most qualified pundits and commentators on the internet today. And we're not hobbled by any kind of sponsorship or affiliated relationship or other time-bought posts. It all comes from the heart. Unfortunately, times are kind of tough. And since the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 to 2023, yes, almost 3 full years, times have become increasingly difficult for small independent sites like iTechGear.org to stay afloat. I normally do this with a portion of the salary I make from the day job, but with the IT market so tight right now, it's really difficult sometimes for many to make normal household ends meet, let alone fund a site like iTechGear that might decide to bring in a buck or two. It ain't easy. If you find any of our content on iTechGear or from ITGW to be of any value at all, I would seriously appreciate you donating as little as just $1 to the cause. While we do have a Patreon site, it's hard to keep one website up, let alone 2. And since it's really only me doing the work, our Patreon site hasn't really helped us at all. If you can make a donation to the site or to the show of any amount, I'd be forever grateful. All donations will go to site maintenance, hosting, podcast hosting, and everything iTechGear related. Donations can be made to my PayPal account at chris@itechgear.org. Make a donation. We'll thank you immediately on the next ITGW episode and voice our gratitude. I want to thank you. We appreciate your consideration, time, and attention. Now let's get back to the latest iTechGear Weekly episode. And welcome back to the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 131. May the 4th be with you. Again, recorded live Sunday, May 4th.
Oh my goodness.
2025. And I want to go ahead and get us into our Windows segment. This is sort of playing on a story in the Windows segment that we did or that we kind of mentioned a week or two ago. Microsoft is wanting users of Windows 10 on PCs that, especially PCs that cannot update to Windows 11, to ditch Windows 10 before it dies, and then hoping that that Copilot and recall will drive sales.
Microsoft's wanting a lot lately, aren't they?
Well, this came about, just close to being a mistake-a-thon episode. Not quite though. There's a difference between the MS mistake-a-thon and just pure blatant stupidity.
Right.
So again, in October of this year, right in the middle of the month, October 14th, Microsoft is going to officially stop supporting Windows 10. And for those folks that are on older PCs that will not update to Windows 11, Microsoft is wanting those people to go and buy a newer Copilot compatible Windows PC. All right. And they are really wanting Copilot, which is their version of their AI, and Windows Recall, which is a visual sort of, I don't want to say backup system, but it's sort of a visual replay of things that you have already done on your machine.
Archiving / snapshotting
/ oh my God, this is a real security mess kind of application.
Yeah.
And I don't care what the hell they said that they've done to it. This is never going to get used in a corporate setting. It's just never going to happen. But they're wanting you to go and buy a new PC, and they're hoping that these two things, Copilot and Recall, will drive sales. The average consumer isn't going to give a rat's patootie about Windows Recall. I don't know that they're going to understand it, and I also don't know that they are going to have the local disks space available to support this. So, especially when you've got SSDs that are somewhere in the neighborhood of around 128 to 512 megabytes, I'm sorry, gigabytes in size.
Well, you and I were talking earlier in this.
Go ahead.
We were talking about file syncing and with cloud services, and that being problematic because it expects you to have the same space available on your local device. So how does this fit into all that mess? On top of it,
it might be also impacted by the fact Microsoft soon going to start making Windows 365 startup, whether you want it to or not, at startup.
True.
Right.
They might.
They don't want it to take so long to load.
I can tell you,
they're going to force it.
I can tell you, if they start forcing that kind of behavior, other than my work machine where I'm forced to use a Windows machine, correct, I will not use I will not use Windows at all. I will stop using it altogether if they start going down that path.
I mean, you take up a lot of, if you turn on every app in Windows, Microsoft 365, you've just opened up a bunch of RAM. You really have.
Yeah, exactly.
Bunch of memory.
Huge
Why
amount.
should a user be subjected to that?
Well, I've already been, other than work, I have been moving slowly away from Outlook as my email client. I like the calendar integration. Chris, you and I have talked about the calendar integration many times.
We have.
But dang it, the resources that it wants,
the
way that it saves files on your stupid OneDrive rather than locally, all these goofy things that it does, little things that they don't talk to you or tell you about, they just does it. And then you go, wait a minute, where is this? Oh, wait a minute, it's over here. When did that start putting it over here? It shouldn't be over here.
No, agree.
It pisses me off all the time. The defaults for locations for document, when you're on Windows, the default locations for documents and all that, and downloads. If you're in corporate, they're trying to force you to the corporate SharePoint or the corporate version of OneDrive now. They won't even let you put it locally until you manually tweak a bunch of stuff. So the point I'm getting at is, with all of these services, this is just another one of those, drive you to services, and they think that this is going to sell machines. And
well, right. All right. I mean, according to Microsoft, by the way, Copilot PCs deliver up to 13% faster performance than a MacBook Air M4. All right.
Yeah, that's crap.
They are
Yeah,
up
yeah,
to 5
bull
times
hockey.
faster than a 5-year-old Windows device with enhanced security features that make those newer PCs more secure. And then they provide longer lasting battery life with up to 22 hours of video playback and up to 15 hours of web browsing, so that you can go all day on a single charge.
Okay, but Recall and Copilot ain't what's selling these devices.
No, that's hardware.
That's the misunderstanding.
What they are talking about here has absolutely A, nothing to do with Windows,
Right.
and B, nothing to do with either the AI system, or which is Copilot, or Recall, which is their archiving sort of time machine something or other equivalent, but
Well,
still a
I mean,
bigger mess.
I have to admit, in my personal life, I was using, I was using a Windows ARM device as my second device to work. I stopped doing that several weeks ago and switched back to Mac.
Yep.
And I've been on the Mac ever since, and I have no desire to go back to the ARM machine.
I get that. I get that.
It's depressing to me because there were things about ARM that I liked, but this is pissing me off. Well, it's just pissing me off.
Well, I don't like the marketing tactics that Microsoft is making related to the software that they're using to drive the ARM platform. All right, Copilot is not a great AI system.
Well, the drive to services I don't care for.
All right,
this drive to services I don't care for.
Right,
and this assumption that I want certain features by default is starting. It's really getting on my nerves. And throwing advertisements into my OS level. Come on.
Oh no! Don't even get me started.
So the point is, these guys are missing on all cylinders right now for me. And what I want.
So yeah, I am not crazy about what's happening here, but I mean, what are you going to do?
You know, if my car engine had to stop and tell me about coffee places I might want to go to before it would take me anywhere,
you wouldn't want that car.
I wouldn't want that car.
No,
and I'm feeling that way about my laptop lately, my Windows laptops.
Right. And you know what's even more interesting, according to Windows Central, is that, Microsoft Copilot and other AI bots, all right, aren't living up to the hype of everything that's going on. And that's
really
exactly what I got.
Really? Yeah, really.
Well, that's
color me
news.
surprised.
It may not. Generative AI may not be revolutionizing the world, as this working paper suggests that the impact of AI chatbots is minimal.
Yeah, and you and I were talking about this in the pre-show again, that there are other reports out there that I've seen on a regular basis in the last few weeks, especially, that people don't want AI. The majority of people don't want it, and they think it's a bad thing. They have negative connotations associated with the concept.
Because we've learned a little bit. We learned a little bit about how industrialization, took jobs away from workers, back during the Industrial Revolution, right? The AI revolution, if you will. We know what's coming.
But they're saying here the AI isn't doing what they said it's going to do. Right. And by the way, it's not saving the money for businesses that they said it would save. It's not living up to any of its hype so far, which is good and bad, because I feel less afraid of Skynet when Skynet can't even figure out how to jump off the ground. But I feel a little less.
They could push it off a building, but I don't know about jumping off the ground.
It might be able to do that, But the point is, it makes you kind of go, what we got here?
I'm up on Microsoft.com right this minute, looking at why they say Copilot, Recall, live captions, Windows Studio, all these things are what you should be doing, because it helps you get things done fast. That's what they're saying.
And we know it's not really true.
Not true.
It really doesn't hold up when you actually try to do these things.
The machine gets it done fast.
Well, the machine and Larry, I think we were talking about this earlier too. The machine gets it done, and then we have to go back and research it and correct it because we can't trust what it did. We can't trust what it did. So
no, you can't. You have to go and actively research, take the time to validate and verify that it actually gave you something that you can use.
Yeah.
All right.
So how did that help me again?
Right. It's as simple as like things like I was playing around with Google Gemini. All right, I know, not Copilot, but it has the same
problem.
Same problem. Yeah.
And I was saying, give me an image that says, take a hike, connect with God, and a certain Bible verse on it.
Right.
And invariably, I would
that should have been simple.
50-50. It should have been simple, yeah. 50-50 did it actually get the text right. 50-50.
What really bothers me about all of this is that it's only as good as the data behind it. Okay, number one.
Oh man,
it cannot ideate on its own.
How many decades have we been saying that about computing?
Over and over and over and over.
It can only do what you tell it. It can't do anything outside of what you tell it. It cannot come up with. It may come up with combinations of data that you tell it that you wouldn't necessarily get, without something, without some sort of a computer mind behind it, if you will. But it's not going to create anything new. It cannot ideate on its own.
No.
All right. It may come up with some weird combination, but it cannot create anything unique.
Even if it could, considering how many mistakes it currently makes, would you want it to?
This is where I'm going. This is exactly where I'm going. All right.
So tell me this: how come the four of us, I'm looking at your chat box.
Yeah, the chat AI thing that's taking the notes in the background. Yeah.
Yeah, the four of us can come together and we all think the same on this, but yet Microsoft and Apple to some degree and Google are all telling their users, their constituents, what a wonderful thing this is, and they're believing it, and we're not. And some companies are believing it.
America.
Yeah.
We're not that good. Come on.
I'm just gonna say this. The AI stuff that's out there, like I said, it can only do what you tell it.
Of course.
Every American business person who is in any kind of a upper leadership, executive leadership, or senior, C-level leadership, all they really want to do is save money. All right. Yeah. Get the product, get the service, get the thing to market, get it out there so that people can buy it without necessarily them spending any extra money on verifying that it all works the way that it's supposed to, right? And this will give them at least, it'll get them part of the way there, and they want to go as far with it as they can, all right, in order to save 37 cents. All right. If they can save 37 cents on creating this one thing, well, then they're going to go ahead and do that because they know that they're going to create 1 million of these things.
But guys, if you read the news, and I know you do, there are some brilliant people out there, some heavy thinkers now saying maybe we ought to rethink AI a little bit. Nobody's listening to them, though.
No.
They just keep on steamrolling ahead.
Right, because they see the dollar signs that they can save at the end of the track, right? At the end of the road. And that's where they are, and they want to get there and they want to save that. I don't know how.
Or they want to sell it, or they want to whatever it is to make their
money.
Make their money off of it. It's really it's very disappointing, to me. And I've said this. You heard me say this a couple of years ago, even when we really started to talk heavily about AI. I think that AI has been very good at enhancing small tasks. In other words, let's call it advanced automation, if you will, or improving the way a particular task gets done. What it sucks at is this general thinking kinds of things,
Right.
these general kind of answers kinds of things. But little things like enhancing a picture, it's great at. Doing a simple search, like I want to compare these 4 models of PCs to each other. Give me the specs on these 4 sets of PCs. The things that are pretty
highlight the differences between
they're
these
automation kinds of things. I would call them things that we could do as people, but it takes us longer to do it. That's all.
Right.
I think it's great at those kinds of things, and I think that Apple's approach has not been the broad stroke of a Gemini or the broad stroke of a Copilot AI. Apple's approach has been, we're going to enhance this app and that app with little things here and there, and we're going to enhance Siri now. Okay,
got them in a little bit of trouble, but I still think in the end it'll be better.
I do too, but I don't think
it will be better, but it's not going to be the know-all end-all that they were originally hoping that it would be.
But I think that if you look at what they said when they first started talking about these AI enhancements and how wonderful it's going to be,
right?
It really was, again, still more about really the limited enhancing features. But the problem was I think they felt a lot of pressure from stockholders, from outside kind of media pundits to make it bigger than it is.
Right.
I think what they announced was way bigger than what they really intended to do. And I don't mean that that they said they were going to do things that they aren't going to do. What I meant was the way it was interpreted was to be this all-encompassing thing, and it's really not. And I don't think that's what Apple's been doing. We'll see what they do.
I also think interpretation that you just brought up is part of the key to this whole thing. Let's say that if Joel or I or you or anybody asks a large language model to define what an SSH procedure is, how does SSH work? We'll know if it makes a mistake in telling us
because we know SSH.
But the average person will not. And you can put this on any desktop in town. How do you make a car? How do you do this? How do you do that?
Right.
The experts know whether it's right or wrong. Billy Joe Bob doesn't. So therein lies the problem, I think.
So
agree.
So
to
fix that, the expert has to go correct it, has to go online and correct it. And who has the procedures for doing that, by the way?
Yeah, but how many Bubbas out there are going to make mistakes in life because they listen to bum information?
Absolutely.
The whole point behind this is that you can't trust it.
But you know what? Here's an interesting thing about this. You made a very good point there, Larry. If you can't trust the data, okay, so where did we go prior to that? Well, just prior to this, we would go, gee, let's go see how I fix the plumbing in my sink. Well, rather than asking an AI for the thing, I would have gone
YouTube.
I would have gone watch it on YouTube. What tells me that the Bubba presenting it to me on YouTube is any smarter about it than I am? I don't know. I don't know their credentials. I have no way to
know their credentials, and you have no idea whether they're right about what the problem that you specifically have or not. But the point is, you're going to watch more than one. You're going to go and you're going to see.
I'm going to go do my research.
If you watch a video on how to put an S-trap under a sink, you go, "My God, he did it! It worked." So you saw it.
Well, there's a couple other clues here. One is, like I said, you can go to multiple ones, like Chris just said. You can research multiple ones and see what different people have to say on the subject to see if there's contention or any kind of disagreement about how you do something. But on top of that, when I'm watching this guy doing it, I can get a pretty good idea. Just like if the plumber comes to my house, I can get a pretty good idea in a few minutes if this guy has a clue or not.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And you get those clues. You don't get that from this AI. I have no idea if this AI knows what it's talking about.
It appears to be the expert that you're.
I have no other clues.
Right, but you don't know. It appears that it's the expert that you hope it's going to be.
Some of the things I would use as clues are gone. So that means I got to go out and do even more research. Okay,
Right. It needs some level of verification for the answers that it brings.
Wikipedia was wild and free when it first came out, and then you started to get the experts in the different categories of things to try to vet some of that data. And then there was always the disagreements and arguments. Oh, they're not the expert. This person's the expert. And you're gonna get that. You get that in the real world, no matter what you do. But the point is, there was an attempt to vet the data somehow. And today, what we have in Wikipedia isn't bad. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. At least in certain areas.
It's not where it was. It doesn't have the level of bad reputation that it had maybe 5 to 7 years ago.
Correct.
It's better off than it was.
My point is that this needs some sort of similar process. But then you get it, the danger with this is the same danger you get with social media, and monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
At what point is it vetting it, and at what point is it where you're basically blocking free speech on it? At what point does it become one versus the other?
This is ironic, but it is so true. I just typed into chatbot, why should I trust you? However, it's crucial to understand that AI is not perfect and requires ongoing development and refinement to address concerns about bias, accuracy, and safety. Hello, what have we been saying?
Yes.
And that was AI telling me that.
Finally.
Mm-hmm. Right. But
the truth.
Yeah. And I think what bothers me the most about it is that like you said, Larry, the average person isn't going to, they're going to take it at face value as the God's gospel truth. And that's it. All right. They don't know. They don't know how to go and figure out whether or not it's the right thing or not.
Yeah. It's a challenge. I mean, and you know what's going to happen?
Chris,
when we were in college, back when we were in college, you almost always had to take some kind of logic course early on in your something like that. Philosophy, logic, something like that. You're going to need to take some kind of coursework in research, vetting, whatever it might be, in order to learn how to do your own analysis of what you're presented. You're going to need coursework or some kind of tools and processes that you can follow as a person to do that. And what's going to happen is what happens with everything. There'll be some people that will take the time and energy to do it, and then there'll be a bunch of people out there that don't.
Agreed. Yeah, most of us put that right between pork and beans and girls.
Fair enough.
All righty, Reenie Roo then.
So what do we got, Chris? What do we got coming up next?
And that's the end of the Windows segment.
It is.
It is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move us to our tip of the week segment. And I want to again remind everybody that, hey, iTechGear.org was founded with the intent of making technology easy for everyone to use and understand. And this team, this august group of 4 really old farts has dedicated their lives and their purpose, all right, to making that actually happen. And so every week, the iTechGear Weekly will feature a new computing tip authored by one of our experienced editors. Questions, requests, and suggestions can be sent to tips@iTechGear.org. And if we use your questions, requests, suggestions, or whatever's that you send to tips@iTechGear.org, we'll give you your 15 seconds worth of fame. But, this week, I was thinking a little earlier today, using AI and going, hey, Shlomo, and all that other stuff is all wonderful good. But if for some reason Shlomo ain't hearing you, all right, how can you communicate? Is there another way to communicate with Siri to make certain that you get your point across? And there in fact is a way. If you take your iPhone and you see that little white bar across the bottom there, if you go ahead and you tap it or tap below it, it will bring up after you go ahead after you unlock it, it'll bring up a Siri's colored keyboard, all right, with an AI Siri that you can ask Siri something, and you can type your question, all right? You can type your question just like you were to go ahead and speak your question. But if for some reason Siri ain't hearing it right, you can still get the answer to whatever it is you're looking for just by double tapping the bottom on any home screen and then typing your question in the bar that comes up.
Or if you're in an environment where you don't want to talk out loud to her, you can
do this,
type to her, right?
Still get your information, right? So, which is a kind of a cool thing to do, right? And depending on how you have Siri set up, if you've got Chat GPT enabled, or however it'll go out and talk to Chat GPT and get you the answer that you're looking for. So it's all kind of cool. But that is this week's tip. If for whatever reason you need to type your question to Siri as opposed to speaking it, a double tap on the bottom of your screen will bring up the Siri keyboard and allow you to go ahead and type your question. So
there you go.
So that's our tip of the
There you
week.
go.
Going to move us to our pick of the week. All right. And before we actually unleash Larry on this particular week's pick, I want to remind everybody that our show picks are typically hardware, software, and other items of interest that we've individually purchased and then we actually use, and that we like enough that we want to recommend them to you, our growing listener base. These aren't paid advertisements or items that we have any kind of an affiliated marketing relationship with. If they were, the editorial policy over at iTechGear.org indicates that we must disclose that up front. These are just things that we sincerely believe in, and we want to bring them to you at the end of each show. Why?
Because we like you.
Yeah, there's only one of you. Come on, guys.
We figure if we keep quiet, one of us will get it right.
Oh, y'all suck.
I'll suck.
Larry, now we're gonna have to hear about that in the staff meeting. Thanks.
That's right.
All right, Larry, what do you got?
Well, what I have is the solution to a use case problem.
Okay.
If you've listened to this show more than once, you know we talk about use cases quite often, and rightfully so, because I mean, life is simply full of use cases. Everything we do, everything we use is all driven by a use case.
It
And
is.
until now, I have never been or never had the use for a power bank. I just don't use them. I don't get far away from outlets or my car. I don't go on hikes like Joel does. So, I mean, if I need to charge something, I plug the damn thing in and I'm done. But there are times in life, and now I have found there can be times in a building when you really need a power bank. I recently installed a good case here. I recently installed a lobby tablet for an organization that I support, and it has several forms like for visitors and volunteers and employees that come up on a browser, and so they can, and all these details when they check in, scribble their little fingerprint on it or whatever, they can capture it in a database. So this tablet had to be installed at a particular place that they wanted it, which was too far away from any of the outlets in the lobby. And being a commercial building, you can't just hire Billy Joe Bob, the electrician. You must hire a certified this, that, and the other electrician. One outlet costs $800. And they said, can't we do this cheaper? And I said, yep, 89 bucks. Called an Anchor Prime Power Bank. This thing, the instant use case for this was they charge the tablet with the power bank about every 3 days, and it lasts for maybe 4 days. And they don't have to charge that power bank up, but about every 2 weeks. I mean, it lasts forever. So, power banks are something that you really need to have one on hand. I didn't believe that. I know you guys have said that, but now I believe it. If you're going to be on any kind of a camping trip, or if your power goes out for a long time or whatever, you probably need a power bank. This is one of the best. It's not one of the biggest. You don't need the biggest. This one is 65 watts. It's got a 30-watt fast charge, which will suck it down a little bit quicker, but it's still the end result is going to use the same amount. So for 90 bucks, you get a really, really good product. And we're big fans of Anchor. They don't pay us a dime for saying that, nothing.
No.
They should, as much as we talk about them, but they don't.
Hell yes.
And I've been happy with it. I've had a bunch of their products over the years, and I've been very happy with it. I will make two caveats. One is that there's some higher level units in this Prime series of devices that are getting high return rates at Amazon.
Ooh,
So
okay.
watch closely when you read your descriptions. Do your
This one
research,
is
guys.
working
This
well
one is
for
not. This
me.
one's fine. This
Okay,
model is
good.
perfect. But some of the bigger ones were getting high return rates. So just watch that kind of stuff as you look close and see why they're returning them, because that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
There's a variety of reasons people do this. The other
Yeah.
thing I would be very, very, very careful of with power banks right now, if you're going to travel with one, first of all, you cannot put them in checked luggage anymore. First of all,
nope, they
and
will
second,
X-ray every piece of luggage, and
secondly,
they will pull it out.
And they will pull it out if you can. If you take it on the plane with you, which you would have to if you're flying, and you have to take it on the plane with you. Some airlines are now starting to not allow you to use them to charge while you're on the airline. In other words, you cannot charge your devices from them while you're on the plane. You can carry the battery with you, but you can't use it.
They don't want it discharging power
because
while they're in the air, because
they don't want it to get hot and overheat or anything like that.
Right.
Sure, it makes sense.
So there's a couple airlines that have restricted it, not all of them. If you get one of these guys, they're great, but check with your airline before you travel flying.
Yeah, just to make certain you
check
don't
their policies. Yeah,
right.
Because it's just a thing.
Well, and if you get tapped while you're in the air, sir, I'm sorry, you cannot charge with that while you're on the plane. The only thing that should be coming out of your mouth is yes, ma'am, or yes, sir.
That should be the only thing you're saying. And put it back in your bag.
That's it. Put it back in your bag.
Disconnect it. Put it back in your bag and be done with it.
Yes. Do not challenge them.
Other than the fact that a power bank is something that we all should probably have, Chris brought up something that ought to be a tip everywhere. Amazon has, not to plug Amazon, but they recently started something that's detrimental to their own sales, but really helps us all out. This item is frequently returned.
Yeah.
That should tell you that you might not want to buy that and go look for something else.
Yep.
Maybe something with that particular.
They put it in red. They put it in red up there.
But you want to see why people are returning it. It's usually down in the comments, and it may be that maybe that just particular model is not a good one. Maybe you just get another model in their line. It doesn't speak to the company.
Run it through an Amazon review checker to make sure they're not bogus reviews.
Yeah, exactly, because that happens. All these things happen.
It does.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that with Anchor products. Typically, they're
you
very,
do
very
not.
good.
And every Anchor product that I've ever purchased or used is absolutely.
All my power supplies are now Anchor.
Yep.
All of
fabulous.
The only problem I ever had with any of their products was their cable that wasn't very good. That I had.
No, I don't use their cables, and more.
But their power supplies, guys, I love their power supplies. I absolutely love them. I have several of them and use them all the time. They're great.
Yeah. Just bought my wife one because she's now got a iPad with USB-C, and I gave her one of my USB-C output batteries, and she's like, "I need a charger." I'm like, "You don't need a charger." I'm like, I quit arguing with her. I just ordered an Anchor one, give her what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
So just call it a charger.
And there you go, kids. That is the show for this week. This has been the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 131. May the 4th be with you. Recorded live Sunday, May 4th, 2025, live from iTechGear Central. For Mr. Chris Gavula, Brother Joe McLaughlin, and Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin, I want to say, hey, we will see you next time.